We all know that twists can transform a good horror movie into a great one, but do you know what's better than one twist? Well, two twists. And do you know what's better than two twists? Well, you probably get the idea. Of course, piling up these reveals is a risky move, as it's hard enough to pull one off convincingly in a way that doesn't shatter the whole plot, but some amazing flicks out there have taken the risk and have it pay off in style. I'm Josh from WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 great horror movies with multiple plot twists. Number 10, The Empty Man. In a movie as long as The Empty Man, which clocks in at a whopping 137 minutes, it's no surprise that the plot takes a few left turns. Hell, the first 20 minutes alone tell an entirely different story to the following 100, as we get an incredibly tense prologue showing how 4 hikers are brutally killed by the curse of the Empty Man after being stranded in a snowstorm. It's an effective opening set against a lush backdrop, but the story is only getting started. As alluded to, the film itself centers around the concept of the Empty Man, and exactly why this supernatural being's influence is spreading far and wide, with a spate of murders and attacks from people claiming that the Empty Man made them do it. Following a detective, James, investigating the crimes, we're quickly led down a rabbit hole of cults, rituals, and the idea that reality itself may not even be able to be trusted. Full spoilers now for the ending, but the wildest twist comes right towards the climax when it's revealed that James himself actually isn't a real person, but has essentially been conjured into existence, birthed specifically to be the new host of The Empty Man. It's a wild reveal and somehow the most sane thing that happens in the whole movie. Number 9, Ghost Stories. If it's twists you're after, then you need to enter the world of British ghost stories. And I mean that both generally as a subgenre, but also directly with this British movie literally called Ghost Stories. If you're a fan of Inside Number 9 or really anything indebted to old folktales, this is ostensibly an anthology movie that follows a skeptical professional supernatural debunker who's given a bunch of cases to investigate that apparently will finally convince him that there really are things that go bump in the night. While the different stories themselves are solid, full of their own mini twists and reveals that keep them engaging for their short duration, what makes this stand out from something like VHS is that the wraparound story about the skeptic himself slowly becomes the main focus. And it's ultimately his story that is the most shocking, as each of the tales pushes him further into the world of the supernatural. As you can probably imagine, the cases aren't as disconnected as they first appear, and ultimately this skeptic has a much more personal connection to them than we thought. It's a great movie and one that'll keep you guessing right up until a final reveal. Number 8, Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. Last year's Bodies, Bodies, Bodies took a whole lot of flack when it first released, with some horror fans calling out the flick's cringe Gen Z critiquing humor. For my money though, while not perfect, it did serve as an inventive and taut thriller, bolstered by a great cast and a story that kept you guessing. Set during the most annoying house party ever thrown, a bunch of young rich people are trapped inside thanks to a hurricane outside, before deciding to play a game of Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. This essentially is just an Among Us or werewolf style game, where one person is designated as the killer and has to pick off the others by catching them. Only it appears this time around that someone is taking the game quite literally and actually murdering their so-called friends. With everybody unsure who to trust, things quickly get out of hand. Now, as you can probably tell with a concept like this, twists are plentiful. Not only do we have a bunch of reveals regarding the relationships and motivations of each character, but there's twists and turns relating to the killer's true identity as well, which I won't spoil here other than to say that the final reveal is hilarious and kind of magnificent. Number 7, Lake Mungo. The twists and turns in the Lake Mungo story are kind of what make it such a special movie. As a mock documentary supposedly made after all of the main events of the movie have happened, it's the storytelling that grips the audience so much, as we chronicle the death of a young girl called Alice and the strange occurrences that happen to her family in the weeks and months that follow. First comes the revelation that Alice's ghost has been spotted on camera footage following her death. This, of course, spooks the family to the point where they call in a medium for help. However, it's later revealed that this footage is actually just fake, and that Alice's brother was responsible, much to the horror of the parents. In a double twist though, it's also revealed that the medium was actually in contact with Alice before her death, as she worried something was after her, a detail that he does not reveal to the family. And this is just the tip of the iceberg, throwing a bunch of reveals about what actually happened to Alice and what was going on in her private life at the time, as well as the double reveal again that she actually was a ghost in the footage the whole time, just not spotted where we were looking, and Lake Mungo continues to dole out rug pulls for the entirety of its runtime. Number 6, Saw. Though the Saw series packed in increasingly absurd twists as it went on, there's something still incredibly satisfying about the plethora of tight reveals in the first movie that makes it a joy to still watch and talk about today. Of course, the reason Saw's twists work so well is that they're not simply about the identity of the killer, but rather why the characters are in the trap in the first place, and perhaps more importantly, how they're related to each other. So, where to even begin with the twists in this flick? Which one is the most surprising? Is it Adam being revealed as someone who was actually following Dr. Gordon? Is it the key to the chains going down the plug hole right at the very beginning? Is it the fact that Zepp is actually part of the game rather than the architect of it? Is it John Kramer rising from the dead, the final game over? It's just all great stuff. There's a reason the movie blew everyone away at the time, and it wasn't the blood or the torture porn. It was just how mind-blowing these reveals were. Number 5, Scream 2022. Of course, like Saw, you can sub any Scream movie in for this entry and it would absolutely fit. But let's focus on the latest installment for something a little bit fresher. After 4 movies that have taught the audience to expect the unexpected, Scream 5 had work cut out for itself to deliver a story that was not only good, but lived up to the heights of its predecessor. And thankfully, it did mostly succeed, with 2 great Ghostface reveals and the deaths of iconic characters. It didn't stop there though, as taking a page out of Star Wars' playbook, the latest Scream revealed that our new heroes were actually related to characters from the previous flicks, even returning the action to an iconic location for the final act. I'm being a little bit vague with this one, as no doubt people will be catching up in time for Scream 6, which drops in March, but what a way to bring this franchise back to life, even if it wasn't 100% perfect. Number 4, Absentia. While mainstream audiences weren't introduced to virtuoso Mike Flanagan until The Haunting of Hill House debuted in 2018, die-hard horror fans have been familiar with the stunning work of the director behind Hush and Midnight Mass since his breathtaking feature-length debut in 2011's Absentia. This movie's central antagonist is a spectral entity inhabiting a bleak concrete tunnel in front of the house where sisters Callie and Trisha reside. Trisha is in the process of declaring her husband Daniel dead in Absentia following his disappearance, and she also happens to be pregnant with another man's child. Considering said disappearance occurred 7 years prior, the sisters and the audience get one hell of a shock when Daniel just reappears, revealing that he was claimed by the creature. It turns out that the monster trades with those passing through the tunnel, but entirely on its own terms, as you never know what it'll offer up in exchange. Now, the unmasking of a mysterious man who had been depositing animal sacrifices as a desperate attempt to retrieve his father from the creature's clutches constitutes one harrowing twist in and of itself, but it does pale in comparison to the climactic sequence. Here, after Trisha is abducted by the entity, a desperate Callie offers her own life as a trade, prompting Flanagan to deliver his stunning final curveball. That's because the monster produces Trisha's unborn fetus in exchange, a life for a life, before claiming both sisters in an utterly desolating conclusion. Number 3, One Cut of the Dead. Now, admittedly, we have spoiled the hell out of most movies on this list so far, but because One Cut of the Dead is one that you might not have seen, all I'm going to say is that this movie has layers. On the surface, it appears to be just your regular old zombie movie, and a pretty shoddy one at that. To be honest, despite having a cool one-shot framing when I watched this for the first time, I did wonder what exactly all the hype was about. Then, One Cut of the Dead revealed exactly what it is, so yeah, hopefully that sold you, and if not, let's go full spoilers for the rest of the entry to follow. So, it turns out that the shoddy zombie movie that you were watching is literally just that, a shoddy zombie movie. And that's because the second part of this flick takes you behind the scenes and shows you the characters who have just pulled off this in-universe movie all in one shot, and why this movie is being made in the first place. It turns out that the filmmakers literally only got one chance to make the movie, as it's all airing live, so the final section shows everything that went wrong on the day, which explains some of the shoddiness at the beginning, and from there out it kind of transforms into a full-on comedy. So, to put it as simple as possible, this is a movie where you watch how a group of filmmakers made a movie about a bunch of characters who are attacked by zombies while filming their own zombie movie. And that's the simple version. Number 2, Us. If it's a Jordan Peele flick, you can expect twists, and trying to go one bigger and better than the already iconic Get Out, Peele's follow-up Us was an absolute balls-to-the-wall swing for the fences, telling a larger and twistier story than its predecessor. And while it's not quite as good, it is still an incredible movie and one hell of a fun time. It follows Adelaide and her family, who are confronted by doppelgangers of themselves who will literally show up on their doorstep. Forcing themselves into Adelaide's home, these doubles are revealed to be tethered, part of an underground population of doppelgangers doppelgangers, each with a corresponding double who lives a happy life on the surface. Forced to live dingy mirror lives underground for years, they've now risen up and are attacking their more privileged selves on the surface in a countrywide liberation event. Now that's a pretty big twist in and of itself, but a final twist reveals why now is the time for such a move, and more importantly, while Adelaide's double seems to be the leader. And that's because it's actually Adelaide who's the real copy, having swapped places with her surface-dwelling self when the two encountered each other as children. So yeah, it turns out that she's not quite as innocent as it first appears. Number 1. Psycho. We had to end this list on a classic, and one that set the template for so many of the flicks that we've already talked about. Psycho's utilization of a false protagonist was kind of unheard of before Hitchcock proceeded to blow the world's collective mind, ferociously disposing of the film's purported lead character Marion Crane, while breathing life into a cinematic technique that has been employed to stunning effect time and time again. Then, of course, we have the reveal that Norman Bates' mother, who we have been led to believe has been responsible for the deaths in the movie so far, has actually been dead the whole time, and is nothing more than a decomposing corpse. Instead, it's Norman himself doing the killings, adopting the personality of his mother, and snuffing out the people who venture into his motel. Considering the fact that all of this occurred at a time when these rug pulls weren't all that popular, it is truly incredible that Psycho managed to usher in a new wave of horror. So, that's our list. I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. How many of these multi-twist movies do you love? And are there any great ones I missed off here? Let me know, and while you're down there, if you could, please give us a like, share, subscribe, and head over to What Culture Horror for more lists like this on the regular. Even if you don't though, I've been Josh. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.